Hi, this is Naomi with Sword and Steel, and today I'm going to show you my first impressions of the Army Painter Masterclass dry brush set. They made certain I got my own copy of these lovely brushes, just so I could try them out, and I have to say that I do like them, and let's get into why. There, this is the Masterclass dry brush set. They may have these out individually at some point, I would imagine. So our first one is the miniature dry brush, designed for dry brushing this size miniature, I'm assuming. That's what I'm going to try it on. Super soft. Feels like you wouldn't want to put a lot of paint on this at all. The moderate dry brush. Oh, this one's quite stiff. This looks like it would be a really easy to use dry brush. And again, you would not need any amount of paint on your dry brush to get that effect. It looks like it's really against smearing, it feels like. We'll see what it's like. And then this one is the Mighty Dry Brush. Very cute name. The Mighty Dry Brush. Oh, it's so soft. This one you can bend the bristles all the way down. Oh, it'd be so easy to do dry brushing with this. I can feel it. You wouldn't have to, you're not going to have to worry about streaks, paint streaks, I can imagine. So I put these brushes through the wringer. We started off by painting a rock base because rock is the easiest way. It is really the easiest thing to dry brush. I only did it monotone here, so I went from black to grey to grey, white to white, and just so I could test out the brush, and as expected, it worked really nicely, and I could tell that you really needed very little on your brush to go a fair distance with your paint, which is a lovely effect of dry brushing. It means that you'll save on paint. On this ruined building, which I had primed Chaos Black, I applied the Vallejo Chrome color because it's a very liquidy color, and I wanted to see how these dry brushes would be able to dry brush with a more liquidy paint. Now, I did find that the dry brushes absolutely prefer thicker paints, which thankfully most every army painter paint that isn't a wash is a thick paint, which is great for dry brushing. However, for a wet paint that covers well, these brushes work just fine with. They absolutely prefer a thick paint that is very opaque, but a thin paint that is opaque does work nicely. You just have to be more careful to avoid getting paint streaks, which is something all dry brushers have to avoid. After that, I tried some gentle aging effects. I highlighted some red with a dusty yellow, and then I added a charcoal gray paint to the bottom to make it kind of look like it had developed soot from some old explosions or fire, something like that. I think both effects worked just fine with the brushes. As you can see with this jade building that I'm painting up, I'm using Chaos Black's primer followed by Cabalite Green from Citadel and Elemental Bolt from the Army Painter. I'm using the Mighty brush for this, and I've been using the Mighty brush for the other pieces other than the rock. I use the moderate dry brush on. I have certainly found that these two brushes make quick work for dry brushing effects, particularly since you don't have to slow down and really think about the amount of paint that you're putting on the dry brush, and because they don't tend to smear paint streaks like some other brushes do. So I certainly like these because they allow you to speed up the painting process on these buildings. And now I've got to try out white. White is one of the harder ones to dry brush well because there are many whites that just do not work well with the dry brushing method. I'm not entirely certain why, but their chemical formulas just make it hard to avoid streaking. So that was the same with these brushes. However, if you had the bare minimum of white, and not any white, but a thick, opaque white, you were able to use either one of the mighty brushes or the moderate dry brushes to make this nice soft effect. Though again, I must warn you, if you are using white, you have to use the barest amount, and it has to be a nice opaque paint. Not necessarily have to be a thick paint, but it has to be very opaque. It has to have great coverage for white to work well as a dry brushing paint. And I just find that multiple whites just don't have what it takes. But this brush works just fine if you use the barest amount of that white. With the right amount of paint on the brush, it allows you to catch those details very nicely with just a few strokes of a brush. I can't say the smallest dry brush gave a similar effect. I found that it didn't really catch the edges like the other two did. Not for this miniature anyway, and also not for the bone reaper that I had tried out on. I realized I'd have to use it in a different fashion than I'd been using it for. So I grabbed this little crate that I had applied a bronze to and covered with a wash, and grabbed some Retributor armor and decided to buff up the armor and see if the dry brush was meant for such things. So not necessarily edge catching dry brushing, but buffing kind of dry brushing, allowing you to lay on a layer very smoothly on top of another layer. And that seemed to be more in line of how it worked. I'm not certain how I feel about this brush yet. I have to give it a few more tries. Another thing I'd like to mention is how easy these guys were to clean out. Now, I didn't let any of the paint really sit long inside the brush, so this is cleaning when you should be cleaning, I suppose. Before the paint settles inside the brush and completely solidifies, you can go ahead and use some dish soap, and just rubbing it into your hand will clean out all of the paint from it. Rinse it out and you're going to have your brush looking beautiful again. These guys were super easy to clean out. Water wasn't enough to clean the paint out of the brush, which is pretty normal for a dry brush. Dry brushes are ones that you do have to have a little more, you have to do a little bit more to clean out the brush. I don't think you need to be to have painted for many years with the dry brushing technique to get a handle on how to use these brushes. I also like how easily they clean out. I was certainly worried about the fact that the paint would try to stick in the deep recesses of the bristles, but it doesn't seem to want to do that at all. It wants to not stick in the bristles. So that's really handy. I think these are really well done pieces, and their thick handles are nice to use. I didn't feel any discomfort using it for a long period of time. I think I don't like this one as much as I like these two for what they do. But this is my first impression, so I'm going to give this guy more tries. But the bristles for me are a bit too long. I absolutely love, for the size of what you're working on, I absolutely love this one and this one as well. But for the size of this one, I'm not so keen on it yet. What do you think of these brushes from what you've seen? Have you tried them yet? If you haven't tried them yet, I do think they're absolutely worth giving a shot. It looks like, I mean, they seem to be fine so far. They are retaining their shape, and their shape is so little ballish that they're going to naturally retain their shape anyway. They're straightforward to clean out, and they are comfortable to use. So I'm happy with them, and I am going to be trying them out wherever I can. I love my brushes. Army Painter has always been great for their brushes, for their high-end brushes. Not so keen on their lower-end ones, but they're lower-end for a reason. But I do like their higher-end brushes, and I like those ones too. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If it was useful to you, please like and subscribe. You will be seeing these used more as I can, as I have a bunch of terrain to paint yet. And I am also going to be trying them out. These bigger brushes, I'm going to be trying out some dry brushing techniques on full miniatures, so I can really expand my knowledge on how best to use these brushes. Alright, bye!